rather than being a weakness.
I noticed Mayor Barletta raising his hand. No question to you, Mayor Barletta, but if you want to comment, even though I'm over time, you may.
Thank you. And the point I want to make today is the opposite point of view, such as big cities, how they're dealing with it. In small town America, we have a very limited resource to provide services to people, very small amount of money. And when I see that those resources being used where they shouldn't be, it's concerning, and it does affect the quality of life. Our budget, as I said, is minuscule, and we're spending the little amount that I do have chasing illegal immigrants around the city of Hazleton.
Thank you very much, Mayor Barletta. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mayor, do you agree that the federal government has some responsibility about those bad actors as well when they come and settle in your community or whether they settle in New York? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And we really haven't done all the things that we should have done. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, I'm dealing with it today.
Yeah, and so what happens is if we have a broken system, which I think all of us understand, then people are left to try and deal with it in whatever the way they feel they have to deal with it. You've stated your views about how to deal with this in for your own community. Wouldn't you agree that if we were able to stop the bad actors from either coming in here or had that would be useful in terms of your own community? Would that have, if we were able to do this in a national way, in a way that could be meaningful, may take some time, but wouldn't that help small towns and communities as well?
Yes, Senator Kennedy, if we secured all ports of entry
Good.
in the United States, not just the southern border, and again, you know, the actors that I'm talking about aren't working in factories or in plants or looking for a better life. They're dealing drugs and terrorizing good people in our community.
Good. It's also not just the borders, isn't it, though? Because 40% of those that are here undocumented just have extended their visas or just have gotten here even legitimately and become lost or have gotten into the community. So we have to do something about those individuals that have come here and may come here legally and then just become a part of the undocumented and those that come across the border. And we also have to deal with this in a comprehensive way, would you say, or not?
I agree, and I also believe that it will take local municipalities to deal with it. I know the debate is whether this is a federal issue or a local issue, but I believe it's more of a local issue because we do deal with it every day.
Well, you certainly would be local because you get the impact of bad actors coming in there, but it's perhaps something that at the national level or the federal level we have a responsibility of securing our borders or doing an immigration program. I think that if we were able to get that done and done right and done well, then many of the smaller communities might not have the problem that you have. But we all understand we've got a problem. Mayor, your testimony and also the Chief's is enormously important and significant. You are the mayor of the city that's been targeted for terrorists, and I think for most, when we read the stories about the city that's targeted repeatedly, it's New York City or it's Subway, maybe the large cities, Pennsylvania, my city of Boston. And so there really is this national debate about what local law enforcement officials ought to do in this. And it's a hotly contested issue and question. We saw it, Senator Specter and I saw it in the markup of our committee, and very divided, and we saw it on the floor of the United States Senate. So when you, with the clarity and the passion, express your view that, and the Chief does, that the most effective way of dealing with the issues of law enforcement and also in terms of national security, which I think you might just talk about for a minute, and intelligence gathering. But this is very significant. Let me just mention one thing. We have now at the national level, if states want to train people to go through and be available to go ahead with enforcement of the immigration, we provide the federal government provides some training for that. Now, we've got to have the state of Alabama that has done that in the past, and we've had the results, at least in one story, show that they had found that of all of the drivers that were pulled over in this circumstance in the state of Alabama, that 50% of them were Latinos, only 5% of them were in a state that only had 5% Latino, and they draw the conclusion, at least in this article, and I'd ask, this is on June 24th, Mr. Chairman, that it be made a part of a record, that it lend itself to a sort of racial profiling. That aside, how do you respond as the person that has sort of the prime responsibility, obviously with the Department of Homeland Security, for the security of your community, how, in terms of intelligence gathering, as the mayor, what have you found the advantages and the disadvantages of being able to work, with the community in order to provide a more secure city in New York and also in Philadelphia, from being able to have your position that the law enforcement ought to be looking after crime rather than immigration reform?
Well, Senator, at least in terms of New York City, I was looking around this audience, and I don't see anybody that I don't think looks like an immigrant, including up here on this stage. We all look like immigrants, and that's one of the problems. You don't know who to go after, so you have to have a policy that doesn't profile, because it wouldn't work and it's also wrong. And you have to have something that will allow companies and the mayor of Hazleton to know with certainty who is here legally and who is not. We talk about security. I've talked to some of the 1,000 police officers that we have dedicated to intelligence and counterterrorism in New York City, and a number of them think that if Al-Qaeda was going to send somebody here, they're more likely to come across our northern border than our southern border. So when you talk about securing borders, I'm never sure what you're really talking about. We have coastlines of a couple thousand miles, both on the East Coast and the West Coast. If you're going to build a real fence around this country, the order of magnitude of funds and troops that you would need is something that, if anybody stopped to think about it, they would realize that's just not possible. The good news is that we've found in New York City, if you enforce the laws fairly, you have exactly the same problem with documented and undocumented, with people that have been here forever and people who've just arrived. There are lots of reasons why people commit crimes. Where they come from doesn't happen to appear to be one of them.
Time is up, Commissioner. Would you say just a brief word?
I have my lieutenant in charge of one of our intelligence people right in here today, and we talked prior to coming here. The intelligence that's coming from the immigrant community is very, very important. The other thing is that if a person is victimized, then we don't want them to worry about that we're going to become profiling them and question them about their green card. We need their help. And I look around the room also, and I said I have Agent Advisory Council, and there's about 40 of them sitting in this room today, or at least there's a large number of them in here today. And it took us years to build that type of relationship. I think once we start enforcing immigration laws, we're going to lose that relationship within a matter of weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the panel very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Kennedy, and thank you, Mayor Bloomberg, Mayor Barletta, Commissioner Johnson. We very much appreciate your coming in.